And we're live! Welcome to the Wasteland. I'm Sebastian from Reviews, and thank you for joining us for another little bit of what we call News from the Wasteland. This is our weekly podcast where we gather around the campfire and discuss our thoughts on the state of the proverbial hellscape that is pop culture. Today I'm welcomed by the addition of several close friends, and by several I mean only two of them, who have decided to journey through the wasteland in order to talk with me. And let me tell you, who we have here today is something that even I didn't think would be possible. Boys, would you care to introduce yourselves to the world?
Hey, this is Diego from Cinemageddon Reviews. How you guys doing today?
Holy crap, look at that! Both of us are finally talking for the first time and not just do separate videos.
Right.
And this is... Sorry. And this is Robert Joseph. Also, you may call me Film Freak.
Oh, he is a freak, alright, I'll give you that. Okay, so today's topic was originally going to be underrated gems. Unfortunately, this came in a really bad time, and not a lot of our friends were able to join us today, so apologies on that. So we decided we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to be talking about unpopular opinions. This is where we're going to try to cancel ourselves by telling all the little hot takes that we have regarding movies and cinema as a whole. And let me tell you, some of our opinions are going to piss a lot of people off, and I'm all prepared for it. I don't know if some of you are, but I sure as hell am. So, let the canceling begin. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
I mean, we're already living in a wasteland here. Who's going to be alive left enough to cancel us? So, Diego, would you care to start first? What disastrously hot take do you have for us today?
Sure, I'm ready to get canceled the hardest out of all of us. So, I have two opinions. My first one, and this is going to be less controversial than the next one. It's a little indie movie that came out in late 2017. It's called The Florida Project.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I know Sebastian has his thoughts about this one, but let me just tell you, he may defend this movie to the death, but I have got quite a few things to say. I hate this movie. All right. So, first of all, let me just tell you guys about the plot in case you haven't heard of The Florida Project. It's about a single mom who's living outside of Orlando, who is struggling to raise her child in a ghetto motel. And it also stars Willem Dafoe as a supporting role, who plays the mom's landlord. It's supposed to depict like a life of struggle and hardship through the eyes of childhood innocence, because the story is mostly told through the eyes of the daughter, which already tells you how shitty this movie's going to be. Do you want me to keep going?
Go ahead. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so let me just get right into railing this thing. So this movie was written, produced, edited, and directed by a man named Sean Baker, who had previously done Tangerine and later did Red Rocket. He's got a ton of praise as a filmmaker. I don't understand why. Because this movie is amateur at best. At worst, it further ensures that people with actual talent don't get jobs in Hollywood. So thanks a lot, because my career is dead on arrival. And that sounds very mean, but let me explain. I have made 2 short films already that were absolutely atrocious. And they were only atrocious because I worked really, really hard to make sure that they weren't even worse than they actually are. So trust me, I know how hard it is to make a movie. However, I take pride in saying that I would never make a movie this bad. Now let's just describe how bad The Florida Project is. I already mentioned that the story is told from the perspective of a 6-year-old kid living in the ghetto. This ensures that there's basically no way that you will either be bored or annoyed watching it. This movie opens, for example, with kids spitting on a car's windshield, which just explains how likable they're supposed to be. The story feels directionless. It feels devoid of all emotion because you can't connect to the characters for reasons that I've already said. The characters make decisions that make absolutely no sense throughout the entire runtime. It never feels like it has any sort of direction. The directing, acting, the cinematography is terrible. Willem Dafoe was nominated somehow for an Oscar for this very tame and, lukewarm performance at best, instead of for No Way Home, which baffles me to this day.
I mean, he was nominated for an Oscar for that movie. It took us having to nominate it, but still. But yeah, you were saying...
He was nominated for No Way Home?
Bro, we nominated him, remember?
Oh, we did. Okay, yeah. We had to do that.
Exactly.
And mind you, this is technically his second nomination in his career. The first time was when he portrayed Nosferatu back in 2001, if memory serves.
He should have...
Wow. I didn't know that.
I didn't even know there was a Nosferatu movie with him. But now I gotta look that up. Anyway, you were saying, Diego?
Look out for yourself.
Okay, so perhaps the most atrocious part of this movie is the ending. So the mom, because she's such a shitty mom.
Spoiler alert, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, spoilers. I need to go into spoilers. Don't watch this movie, please. I don't care about spoilers with this one, especially. I'm going to warn you about my next one, but not this one, because I really don't think that anybody should see it. In fact, I really don't think this movie should have seen the light of day.
Oh boy.
There is a montage at the end of the film, which is a slap in the face to the film's initial tone, quote unquote, and any and all remaining logic in the story. So the mom, because she's doing such a terrible job at raising this kid, I mean, she's on welfare, she's about to get kicked out of this motel because she already got kicked out of her house. She can't find a man, she can't find a job, she has to commit crimes in order to raise money. Finally gets found out by child services, and they come to take the daughter away. So the daughter comes over to her best friend's apartment because she actually lives there lawfully, and just starts crying incessantly. Like, she cries for like 20 straight minutes straight into the camera. It's the most annoying thing ever. I mean, oh my god, I was crying only because I was so annoyed. And then finally, like, in a stroke of, I want to say, either stupidity or pure genius, Sean Baker decides, let's put a music montage at the end of the film where the two little girls run away to Disney World and then cut to black and just slap the audience in the face with what they just saw. Oh, I gotta say, this movie was shot so terribly from beginning to end. There are entire scenes that take place with one single take. It's a wide shot, and characters will often walk in and out of frame. They'll walk in and out of focus in the camera. They'll be blurry in one moment, and then they'll walk too close to the camera and be blurry again.
Let's see that's supposed to capture realism, you know, because you go
Exactly.
in everything. No, you won't be able. It's those little details that you just will not notice if you're there. Or something
it's supposed
like
to
that.
capture realism. It's supposed to capture real amateurism in film. Why do people like this movie, Sebastian? Why?
Yes. First of all, hold on, Robert. Robert. Let me just point out one thing. This is a movie that I like to call this is a film that, in my opinion, belongs in the category of artsy-fartsy movies. Like, those movies that are not necessarily good, may not necessarily be great in any respect, but are respected, however ridiculously, by film students. This is a movie that would be on the same pantheon as things like Citizen Kane, Pulp Fiction, and whatever other. I'm not.
That is an insult.
I am not comparing this piece of shit to Pulp Fiction. First of all,
it's an example. Also, technically, Diego, I don't know if you know this. This is from Three Simple Digits, A24. I mean, for years I've been following these guys because whenever I see those letters, that's why I'm like, it's like a step of approval of film quality.
Yeah,
like, you see those letters, Robert, you're in for a great work.
Robert, I hate to tell you this, but not everything A24 puts out is good, and this movie is definitely a huge example of that.
It's very bad. It's very bad.
Well, this is legitimately probably the.
But again, I can't say anything since I haven't watched this, so therefore I got no comment.
Well, I've seen it, and let me tell you right now, I totally get what Sean Baker was trying to do with this film. I really like Red Rocket. I thought that was fantastic. I cannot say the same about the Florida Project. The Florida Project to me felt like has anyone here seen A Ghost Story? David Lowery's A Ghost Story?
I haven't, but I was curious about it until now. I guess.
Well, I would recommend checking it out. Like, it is definitely well, I would recommend you checking that out. It is, in my opinion, a good film in the same regard, but it is definitely a film that falls into the same category as the Florida Project, where all these weird little shots, the way that it's shooting itself, it feels almost like a Gus Van Sant film in a way, and a really terrible Gus Van Sant film.
Same year of release. It was also released in 2017, and it's also from A24.
I gotta tell you one thing. Sean Baker is not David Lowery. David Lowery is a genius. Sean Baker I'm glad that he got the credibility that he got. I just wish it was for any other film besides the Florida Project. The Florida Project is a film for film snobs, and the kind of film snobs that you see and say, "Oh, you look at you watching those terrible Marvel movies. We know the good stuff." Yeah, and then you sit down and you watch the good stuff, and you're left wondering, "Okay, I see the good stuff, but where's the good supposed to come out?"
Dude, I knew someone just like that in film school. He would trash on Marvel movies, and then he would just rail on. I mean, he would just rail on you for praising them, and then he would turn around and watch shit like the Florida Project all the time.
Like these, you can tell just by talking to these people that these are film buffs who do not have fun with the films that they watch. Like, you don't watch movies to have fun. You watch movies to say that you watch them and then brag about them. And that, to me, is what the Florida Project is to some extent. Like, there is some genius in there, but wherever that genius is hidden away in all the terrible nothingness that it has.
Wait a minute. I mean, you all consider this is technically a slice of life film, just like Lost in Translation?
Yeah, Lost in Translation is not. Do not compare this to Lost in Translation.
I
But
understand. Just saying they're both in the category of slice of life, since, as my sister would put it, it's a film where nothing happens. This is her thoughts on Lost in Translation, mind you, when she saw it. And she stopped. Actually, both my dad and my sister to this day would say that Lost in Translation is one of the worst films they ever watched, even though I watched it years later and I thought, what are they talking about? There is something happening here.
well, okay. Have any of you seen Minari, the Korean film where Steven Yeun got nominated for an Oscar and Lee Isaac
Not
Chung?
yet.
Well, it was
Not
directed
yet.
by Lee Isaac
I haven't
Chung.
watched it.
Okay, well, the Florida Project and Minari are two similar films in that it's less of an actual story and more just of a things happening with this family as it unfolds. The difference there is, and I had to say it, the Florida Project is just a very boring family. You do not care about these people. Minari, on the other hand, you have a Korean family that is struggling to stay financially stable, and you are looking at this also through the mind of a child. Actually, now that I think about it, wow, Minari and the Florida Project are two very similar movies, but the Minari at the very least ended with with all of their stuff getting caught on fire and the wife and husband getting close to divorcing each other. So at least things happened in there. So slice of life stuff, I can understand why some people will look at slice of life and say that not a lot of stuff happens in them, but that's
It's
complete.
very hit or miss.
Yeah,
It's very hit or miss.
exactly. But that's also kind of a bullshit claim because a lot of slice of life stuff has things happening in them. I watch anime for a living. I can tell you things happen in slice of life stories. Florida Project had no excuse for that. I get what it's trying to do. It's just what it's doing is not that interesting.
Yeah.
And
I mean, one could say that it's trying to be grounded and relatable. Like, yes, a lot of people would struggle trying to get a job. A lot of people are single. A lot of people have kids who would go out doing stuff, be loud, and live in the ghetto. So yeah, I can get that it's trying to be grounded and relatable. But the thing is, and that's the thing, a lot of people are going through that even to this day and age. I mean, I would know. I have a job where I deal with customers who need benefits to survive the month.
that's good and all, but that doesn't make for a good story.
I know, it just depends on characterization, how likable they are, how relatable they are, and how you click with the character. And that's a rule of thumb when it comes to writing characters. If you don't like your character, if you don't have a character that's likable within the first 5 minutes, and why do you want to continue sticking around with this character?
Okay, let me stop you right there. A character can be dislikable and still make a good protagonist. Not every story needs to have a likable protagonist.
You can have an imperfect character, but still connect with that character.
So basically, the Florida Project was nominated for 133 awards in total, including one Oscar for Willem Dafoe. This was the only Oscar that this movie was nominated for, and it won a total of 66.
I love Willem Dafoe. He did not deserve the Oscar for this movie. It's a very tame, very lackluster performance. It's very, very watered down for him.
To be fair, he was only nominated. If this is 2018, so they give the award to Mahershala Ali. and very well done. Wait a minute, 2018. Oh God, they gave the award to Mahershala Ali for Green Book.
Okay, that I can understand.
Oh God, I hate that movie.
I know. You don't like this movie.
No
but
one likes
as
this
someone-
movie. No one.
except for me.
And that's a problem.
I watched it twice.
That's a big problem, dude. And if I have to tell you why, then we're gonna be here all day. So
I know. I get the why.
Okay,
I get the
so
why.
yeah, you get the why, but you don't seem to realize why that's a problem. So
I still look.
okay,
I still like the movie, but
Robert,
let's just go there.
Robert. Let's go ahead and kind of stop that here because we do not need to get into an argument about Green Book because that is an argument that no one needs to be having in this on this podcast. So instead, let's try a little something which I did on my last video where we're going to be taking a look at some reviews for for the Florida Project, damn it! And we're going to be taking a look to see whether or not these reviews stand out or not. I'm going to be pulling up Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm going to be looking up just random little reviews and just reading what they say just to see what anybody had to say about them. Shall we do that?
Yes, I was reading reviews for the Florida Project before this, and let me tell you, I'm excited. If you go on the right website, I think Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes, one of those two, I think you'll find one that I just absolutely adore, and I will praise this human being for the rest of my life. So go ahead.
Okay, so I'm on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm going to be looking at the top critics' choices, and I'm going to be doing a mixture of negative and positive ones. Let's do one of the positive ones. This is from Mark Kermode of The Observer in the UK. I like this guy. Another superbly sympathetic portrait of marginalized experience from a filmmaker whose great triumph is that he never feels like a tourist. This is Moon's world, and for a couple of hours at least, we are privileged to live in it. 5 out of 5 stars. 5 out of 5.
Privileged.
Privileged.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Kill me now.
I would love to, but I can't. I'm not there to do it. This next one is from Charlotte O'Sullivan from the London Evening Standard. The camera, if especially respectful towards the children, refuses to demonize any of the characters. This is a positive review? This seems like just a regular. This seems like more.
Lets the audience do it. It lets the audience demonize the characters, every single one of them.
Pretty goddamn much. Okay, let's see. Okay, I found one negative review so far. This is from Cassie DaCosta from Film Comment magazine. The audience is invited to believe that their lives are devoid of thoughts and motivations beyond hustle and pleasure, and so the movie ends up feeling like a millennial Instagram feed. Cute, edgy, explosive, pithy, but shallow.
Okay, I would not describe this movie as that. I would say that it's like if a Instagram person was like somehow sight impaired and couldn't take a photo to save their life.
My god, so it's basically like the cameraman for the first Hunger Games movie.
Except worse, because at least his shots were in focus.
That's true. Okay. Okay, here's another negative one. This one's from Candice Frederick of Real Talk Online. It seems more casually curious and at times even exploitative in its attempt to center the narrative of a poor, marginalized single mother and her precocious young daughter.
That's very pretentious.
Yeah. You can tell that these are old critics that have been in the industry for a while.
They're reaching. I'll tell you, they're reaching.
This definitely sounds like they're reaching. Like, even though this is a negative review, I don't know if even I agree with this. Let's see. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Mr. Richard Roper from the Chicago Sun-Times. It's film that'll make you wince at times, and you'll most likely not want to see twice. I know you'll agree with that.
Yes.
But seeing it once is an experience you'll not soon forget. It's not me. He's not wrong.
You are telling me, sir. You are telling me. Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Okay, let's see if I can find at least one more. Let's see if I can find just one more. Okay, here's one. This is from Valerie Complex from Black Girl Nerds. While Baker's previous movie Tangerine is a milestone in LGBTQ filmmaking, the Florida Project doesn't ring as true to life. Kind of basic, I guess, but yeah, I can see what she's referring to here.
Yeah, it's kind of basic, but I guess, yeah. I guess I agree with that.
Oh my goodness. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. All right. So that was us talking about the Florida Project, and now Robert, I believe you had a little something you wanted to talk about. Can you tell us what your topic is?
All right, my topic. So now, as you all know, the world is going streaming for the past several years, since let's say mid 2010s, if memory serves. I mean, Netflix was what started it all, and then as you know, I mean, I believe Hulu came first, but either way, as you know, as the years went by, we had HBO Max, then Peacock, and then there's also, of course, most recently, no, wait, Disney Plus, and then most recently, Paramount Plus, which of course I have them all because, well, how else am I going to access all this wonderful content? Because as someone who likes to binge watch many shows and access to many certain films from various decades, why not? Because here's the thing: we all grew up watching television. I mean, who hasn't? But you know what's bothering the most? Waiting for that one. You know, you're just channel surfing and you're trying to find what's available to watch right now. But now with streaming services, you can pick what show to watch any time of day, and you can then pause it and then leave and then come back a few minutes later to a couple days later. Because that's via streaming services. It stays where you're at instead of you have to wait for the next episode while watching on a random marathon on television on a random channel. And I can get that people would say, well, it's inconvenient, and that most people would say, I don't have the money for it, or I get it. It's a pain in the butt, but I was gonna because this is much. I mean, it's much. But either this or you go become a pirate, which I'm not gonna go in that route. I want to support these services. I want to watch these shows properly for the right service. And fortunately, I save, so therefore I'm able to pay for these services monthly. Now, I take it that both we would say that it can be quite an inconvenience to watch that one show that you're curious about, but then have that service for a limited time, and then once you finish that show, you're just gonna unsubscribe.
So, so hold on. Let me see if I'm understanding this. So, are you trying to argue against people who don't like having to pay for multiple streaming services?
More like saying that people are getting tired of getting another service just to watch that one thing when people can just and instead of like, what's the point of that when you just pay for cable? I mean, that's the topic that I've been hearing lately, where people are getting tired of like trying to get another service. Instead, you have to like, and of course, the annoyance of ads in the meantime while watching these movies or shows.
So, like the ads that other people are getting on other streaming services?
Right. The point is, I feel that people like lately people keep complaining about not to mention paying a lot for that one service. Like as you know, with Netflix being the most expensive monthly.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm understanding. So, hold on. Are you complaining over the fact that we have multiple streaming services? Or are you complaining about the people who are complaining that we have multiple streaming services?
Right. I'm trying to explain to you this properly in the best way I can, basically. So, wow, you see, I didn't thought this through, but bear with me here. So basically, you get one good streaming service, but then that movie's not there, and then you have to find that one streaming service. Like for example, there was a movie there, and it's gone, and you find out that's moved to another streaming service. So again, it can be a chore to find that one movie you're looking for, even though you could have it on DVD. So yeah, look, the whole point is we're now in a time where we can watch any show or movie any time of day, but instead people choose not to have a streaming service because they don't want to pay monthly. That's the whole problem. Which again, I can get that it may be a chore to like pay monthly, but how is it gonna be able to access that content properly and not go through pirated sites?
Okay.
Because
Mm.
Okay. So, I'm not really sure. I'm still. See, here's the thing. Cable requires a monthly payment. That's the way
Yeah.
those services work. No one really is complaining about having to pay a monthly payment for streaming services. If I want these services, I will pay for them because I want those services. The problem with streaming that I'm seeing there is streaming, because all of these streaming services are from multiple different companies and corporations. Certain movies and TV shows and anything in between are locked into those particular services based on whatever company owns the rights, the licensing and rights to those movies or shows. And
Right.
because there's so many of them, and they're separated by not by genre but by corporation that owns it. If you want to watch all of this, you need this service, but if you want to watch that other series or that particular film, you'll need to go into that service. It's not a question of I don't want to have to pay for all of this because it's so expensive. It's I don't want to have to pay for all of these different services when one should be enough for all of them. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, and that's a big problem. Streaming is become way too monopolized because all of these different companies are trying to get their slice of what Netflix had. Netflix
I agree.
Netflix basically made the model for how a streaming service works, and since then we had things like HBO Max, Hulu, which before that it was just a site for videos, for clips of episodes or videos that you can watch for free. It was no streaming available for it. And now we have things like Disney Plus and Discovery of all things, which is now doing streaming, and Peacock. I lost so much track of all of these different services. Apple TV Plus was a thing that I didn't give a thing. I didn't give any sort of attention
Oh, I
to.
forgot to mention that. Oh, yeah, I forgot to
Yeah,
mention that.
you see what I mean? All of these different services, and no, not a lot of people are good. This I only used Apple TV Plus so that I can watch Ted Lasso and Coda. I have not used Apple TV Plus at all after that. And with HBO Max, there's certain things that I like about it, but there's not a whole lot of content for me to sink my teeth into. Disney Plus has a lot of stuff that I do like, therefore I use it a lot as well. Netflix, Netflix is a whole other issue that I'm gonna be talking about myself, but uh, the big issue here is streaming. Streaming services are not the problem. The heavy monopolization is the problem, and that's what people are
Let's not
upset.
forget, and let's not forget the whole reason that streaming services became so popular is because cable became so expensive, and because the market is so saturated with all these different streaming services. You got Apple TV, you got Netflix, you got Disney Plus, you got HBO Max, you got Paramount Plus, etc., etc., etc. All these streaming services are making it harder for other streaming services to turn a profit, and because they're not turning a profit as well as they want to, they're hiking up the prices, which is making things worse. So things are just as bad now as they were with cable, because cable was the only, like, it had its own things to deal with. Like, you had Dish Network, you had DirecTV, and now nobody ever has DirecTV because everybody has Amazon Prime.
Exactly, and even
Oh, and
then,
there's also Amazon Prime Video. I forgot about that streaming service too. Yeah, I know it's a lot to keep up, but at least I do keep up with them since I got apps for that. I keep track of which one I pay monthly and which services I watch, like which shows I watch on, and what movies I know where to watch. Because with the Apple TV app, you write the name of movie or show on the search, and it tells you which one is available to watch at, and that's how I know. So I can be able to then plan ahead, to prep up. Because with the Apple TV Plus device, you'll be able to organize, like select what show to watch through the device. I don't know if I'm making sense.
you're just describing how the apps work. We know how the apps work. The problem isn't that we don't know how they work. The problem is that there's too much that we have to work with.
I know there's too
And
many.
for the price, it's not worth it, honestly.
Especially with Netflix. Netflix has officially.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on what you watch on Netflix.
It doesn't
'cause
matter what
I
I'm
watch
watching on Netflix. I can literally only use Netflix to watch Arcane and then not come back to it. I do not need to pay $17 or even $18 a month just to watch one series that I want to watch there. And Netflix has a lot of content. And so does Disney Plus. Disney Plus is only $10 a month. I think that's much substantially less expensive than something like Netflix, which used to have a lot of Disney content in it, but now is no longer the case because Disney is now in the game. They saw what Netflix was doing, and now they want a slice of that. And so does HBO Max, and so does Hulu, which also happens to be by Disney. So that's 2 Disney streaming services for the price of 1, which they have a bundle for. And don't let I forgot about ESPN. ESPN also has a streaming service on Hulu and on Disney
right.
Plus. I keep
Yeah,
forgetting.
for the Disney bundle.
There's also
Right,
also
for the Disney
AMC Plus. There's also AMC Plus. There's also Vudu. There's also like Fandango TV. I think
What?
that's a streaming service.
Voodoo has a
And
streaming
there's-
service too? What the fuck?
Yeah, there's also you're right, AMC Plus, and then there's also Sundance Plus, the Sundance Plus, BBC
History Plus.
That's right, it's History Plus. And you also got BBC Player.
So the market is just saturated with all these different streaming services.
Exactly. How much do you think? And the way that you're saying all this, do you not think that people? Because let me say one thing here. Nobody is made of money. I'm not made of money. We do not need like these services, like stuff like HBO Max and Disney Plus. They are small inexpenses that we don't really need to think too much about. But when we had to pay for all of these at one, we're basically just paying for cable. This is no different than having to pay for cable. So the whole thing there is basically, you're basically paying for cable, but the difference is with cable, you at least had a box, a little box with a remote control that you can scroll down to see whatever channel you want to see. With all of these different services, you need to download those apps, make sure that you have room on whatever device you're watching it, and on top of all that, you also need to pay for those specific services and have to scroll down to look up what you want to see instead of whatever that is that they have there being available and already broadcasting on the spot. That's just one thing, but even if you take away all that out of the equation, the cost of all of those streaming services is astronomical, especially when you put into consideration all the hikings with the prices that come up every single month and every single year. It's incredibly hard to keep track of all the different streaming services and how much you're paying monthly or even yearly for that matter when the price continues to raise for all of these different services. I give credit to Disney Plus that at the very least it doesn't increase its price as much as Netflix does, but Netflix, I get emails from them constantly telling me that your service is your monthly cost is going to increase by this much starting on this particular month, and I'm like, excuse me, why are you upping the price? Do I get anything else as a result of it? Do I get any extra bonuses? Anything? Me being a lifelong subscriber, do I get anything as well? No, I'm paying more for the same service that I'm already paying for right now. Fantastic.
You're paying more. You're paying more for all those really bad shows that Netflix won't cancel while they cancel all your favorite shows.
It depends on the show. I mean, it depends on what show you would say it's bad and what show got poorly canceled for no reason. Again, it depends on what show you're referring to.
I think they're missing the point here, though. The point is, no one should have to. If the whole point is that streaming is supposed to be convenient, it's a little inconvenient to have to keep track of all the different services that there are, and on top of that, having to keep track of all the different payments for said services. You have no idea how many times I had to look at my phone to make sure that I wasn't losing money, just to make sure that, okay, hold on, what services am I being charged for this time? Because I'm using Hulu, I'm using Disney Plus, I'm using Netflix, HBO Max, Discovery I'm using as well, though I don't particularly use it as often as I should, which kind of says a lot about the whole area of streaming and how we all kind of subscribe to them despite the fact that there's little content for us to actually explore with them. And then you have stuff like Amazon Prime, which I'm only subscribed to it because I'm using Amazon Prime because I have Amazon Prime, not Amazon Prime Video. It just comes with the service of it. So, okay, I got that now, I guess. But you're basically looking at yourself and then thinking, why is my bank account getting smaller? And that's when you realize, oh my God, I am overpaying for all of this. My friend Luis would have a very good argument for this. He actually stopped using certain streaming services and only comes back once or twice whenever there's something in particular he wants to watch. I honestly do not recommend he does that because he'll basically have to pay for that service regardless, but that's up to him. But I understand what he's trying to do there. But the fact that he has to do that and the fact that there exist websites and articles calculating how much all these different services are costing because of how many services there are, that's a pretty big problem.
But I
So
will agree on one. But I will say this: Netflix, if you're ever listening, stop releasing too many things every week. Seriously, release them at least once, two shows a month. You're not going to release 5 in one day. Like, let people breathe from binge watching. That's another thing. I think I have the right topic here. So
we can talk
binge
about
watching
yours
AKB
later. We can talk about
Yeah.
that other topic later. So we talked.
Right.
So we talked about It's funny that you mentioned streaming because my topic in particular has to do with streaming as well, but it's more of a personal thing, and I think a lot of people will agree, but also some people will highly disagree with, and that is I think that streaming as a whole, like the idea of streaming, has severely damaged the way we as consumers consume media. Whether it's movies, TV, whatever you want to call it, uh, streaming in particular has really damaged the way that we consume it as a result. Before streaming became so mainstream, we either watched television or we went to the movies and we watched movies there. And then we waited for them to get released physically. But nowadays, with everything being released at a specific time frame and then you can watch on the spot, people have become much too comfortable with streaming as a result. And the whole experience is kind of dead in the water. And as a result, people who watch that kind of stuff almost immediately, that whole impact of having to go in to see him personally is lessened because you just click a button and there you're watching it. And then you go to Twitter and you write down whatever stupid take you have about that. And to me, what streaming has done is it made life more convenient, but by giving us that convenience, it also took away the impact that normally would exist by watching those things in a much more patient and comfortable set place. Like, I don't know if a lot of other people agree with me on this, but I think it's a bit of a problem when stuff like Netflix releases shows, like completed shows in 8 episode parts already available for you to watch and consume, when other services like Disney Plus and Hulu have weekly episodes, as they should, to give people a chance to breathe.
I prefer that more than binging. In fact, binging, it feels like you're pressured, like, hey, watch this show, you better watch it immediately or else.
Yeah, because what they're doing there is essentially, I get what they're trying to do there. The binge culture thing is something that annoys me to no degree, but I understand what they're trying to do there in paper. They're trying to make people, they're basically trying to say, hey, you can watch everything now, so you don't have to wait for spoilers. The problem is, not everyone is going to watch this immediately when it airdrops at 3 o'clock in the morning. So whatever.
Exactly, because, work, school, studies, hobbies.
So
responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever John Q goes to work that day, he's going to be scrolling to Facebook, and all of a sudden he's going to be seeing screenshots from whatever asshole is talking about that movie or show with a specific thumbnail for a movie in a specific moment that spoils pretty much the whole thing. And that to me has really ruined the way that people consume film and TV as a whole, because there's no surprise there. And even if there was a surprise there, when you watch it and you talk about it, everybody's basically talking like, yeah, we saw it, not a big deal. Like, I expected better. It's like, what the hell were you expecting? Like, there's no build up anymore. Build up no longer exists. Like,
I know.
There's no hype.
I agree. Because part of
you watch the episode and then you enjoy talking about that one episode for the majority of the week until the next one. That's what builds up hype and anticipation. You get to exchange theories about what the next one's gonna be about. Like, oh, will that character make it through, or maybe that character will come back. Like with the Marvel shows on Disney Plus or Hulu shows. Like, I prefer that. Plus, it allows you to take a break from that one show and then go on to another show. Instead of getting stuck in that one show, you're starting to binge watch.
I agree. I was about to say the same thing.
Like I like again, I'm not trying to say that streaming as a whole is a problem because let's be honest, 2020 pretty much made streaming a mandatory necessity for everybody. So we kind of have
Yeah,
there's really no argument that can be made there. But I think we as moviegoers and TV watchers have become way too comfortable with the idea of streaming services essentially giving us all of these little nuggets to watch and consume, but not having the patience to wait for the next episode. And we're starting to see that with the way that people are reacting to certain shows, which I'm not going to name drop here because one of us is going to get into an unnecessary argument that doesn't need to be argued about. But people are not patient, and with streaming that patience is decreasing even more. And people need to remember that there was a time where we weren't even aware when the shows were going to start airing. You needed to look at the TV guide just to know when the next episode or even a certain movie was going to be playing. Sure, it was
that's
the
right.
dark ages for some people, that was the dark ages, but that's the way that it worked, and it worked for a reason. Now, because everything is so goddamn convenient for everybody, there's no anticipation anymore. There's no more hype. You watch trailers for certain shows or movies, and by the time that they get released, it's been over 2 months, and you just realize, oh yeah, that show I wanted to watch, it's finally there. And then you watch it, and you're very underwhelmed. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot, I had to watch this. You watch it, and that's it. No emotional response, nothing there. Like, it's very rare for me to not get excited for movies or shows, but when it's announced as something like, say, the newly announced Castlevania or the newly announced season of Squid Game, I want to say I'm excited for it, but I don't know when it's going to be released, and even when it finally does get released, it's all going to be there immediately ready for me to watch it, and by the time I realize that it's already there, I don't even care anymore. I'll watch it, sure, but unless I am waiting for this with anticipation and just waiting, like focusing every fiber of my attention to it and letting that hype build up for me personally, I'm just not going to give a shit. I didn't give a shit for Moon Knight. I didn't give a shit for a lot of the other Marvel TV shows. I didn't give a shit for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I didn't give a shit for Loki. I didn't give a shit for Hawkeye. I only give a shit about WandaVision, and even then, I only give a shit for like the first couple of episodes, and only gradually stayed excited up until the end. But the only other show that I'm currently excited for is Miss Marvel, and even then, the discourse around it is getting annoying, but at least it's doing good. But good lord, with all of this, it's becoming too much. And with at least with Disney Plus, they're doing the right thing and having all the episodes available weekly. But even then, with stuff like Kenobi, where they released the first two episodes on one day, I'm glad that they did that because for me, it would have been a good way to say, "Hey, you get two episodes, but you gotta wait for the next one." So that's a good way to tease it. But with stuff like Netflix, I despise this. I despise binge culture as a whole. Like the fact that they released part one of Stranger Things season 4, part one in 7 episodes. How the hell is this even a part one? It kind of
Right
shows
on.
how ridiculous the whole thing has gotten. Like, if you're gonna release this is an anime, you don't release something like this, and this is not an anime with a 2 core arc in it. Like, you release things and then you release them when the episodes are finished. I I really hate how Netflix has basically turned waiting for an episode into essentially, I don't know what the term here for that is, but basically it's made waiting for an episode a thing of the past, which you would think is a good thing, but it isn't. All it does is it makes people impatient, and when they're impatient, they finally get to see the episode they wanted to see, and it sucks, or it doesn't give me what I wanted, and I waited a week for this. Why did I wait a week for this? This is what we're seeing now with shows that do follow the weekly structure, and it's starting to get on my nerves.
Mm.
like what do you guys think about it, Diego, who I'm sure is playing with his dog right now?
I am not playing with my dog. I was just taking all of that in. I agree with some points, and I also kind of disagree. Um, I think binge culture has it's like a two-sided coin, and like you could be holding it one way or another. For the most part, I actually agree with you, Sebastian. I agree that binge culture is kind of ruining the aspect of weekly anticipation. That's kind of tarnishing how people receive other shows. Like, for example, if they have to wait, then maybe they don't want to because they've become a little bit spoiled thanks to Netflix. Like, you can just watch all of season 1 of Squid Game in 8 hours, and then you turn around, you have to watch one episode of whatever, like Miss Marvel, for example, on Disney Plus, and then you gotta wait till next week. And maybe you didn't like that episode as much, but because you're so used to binge culture, then you kind of just you either have to deal with it or you don't. And for that reason, people consume shows that are released weekly less because they'd rather just watch everything all in one go. But at the same time, that's also kind of inconvenient for people who are sorry, for people who like watch who all watch Netflix shows and all the content is there, but they don't have enough time to watch it. So it's a two-sided coin for sure.
I can see that. Robert, do you have anything to add for this?
Sorry about that. I'm trying to keep up with the conversation because of the connection. But anyway, so now it depends on the show also that's worth the binging. Like if it's now, here's the thing about binge watching. It depends on you need to plan things well. Like for example, Stranger Things season 4, volume 1. I planned ahead because fortunately I was able to watch it during my vacation during late May. And I planned this well. I look at the running times and I would start planning like, okay, I'll watch 3 a day. Which I'll admit, binging can be a hassle depending on the timing. And of course, depending on how worth the wait it is. Stranger Things season 4, of course, was worth the wait for me. I wanted to watch 3 episodes in one day and then watch 2 more the next day.
I enjoyed
And
it.
then it was worth the wait for me. But if you're gonna start watching a show and then you're like, okay, episode 1 was okay, let's watch episode 2, and then you're like, okay, made to episode 3, what a waste of time. And then we make it to episode 5, you're like, wow, now I made it to the plot. By the way, this was October Faction, which it's I consider one of Netflix's worst shows, which I'm glad it got canceled. But the point is, if you get stuck on a show that you're like not losing interest, just stop there. It's not worth the binging. Now, I prefer watching shows weekly, like shows that are from Disney Plus and Hulu, and of course, anime in particular. Now, Netflix does have anime, like new anime, like for example, Komi is released weekly, which that's a nice idea, since they air in Japan first, then they become available 2 weeks after. That's fair. And of course, there are animes exclusive for Netflix they release all the episodes at once, which okay, that's fair. They're not that long. They're less than half an hour, so you'd be able to watch at least 3 episodes in one shot. That's easy. That's fair. That's not a problem. But binging is a pain. I can admit this because you're forced to watch that show and you have to do it as soon as possible before you have to go back to work the next day. Like for example, I'm free on weekends, so I got like basically I'm like fudge. I got one weekend to watch one season of 8 chapters. Not easy because you got things to do and you want to do other shows or do other things. Like take a breather. And depends on what time you wake up. You know.
Okay, so see, my problem is that word right there, planning. Why should I have to plan ahead to watch something? Why can't I just sit down and watch anything that I want at my own pace? Binging takes away from that. It basically says I need to prepare myself to watch this because if I don't, someone will spoil it for me or the internet will already talk about it or I'm not going to be prepared to talk about this when everyone else is already doing so. Why can't I just watch things on my own pace? Like, no one should have to prepare themselves to watch something. I think that kind of defeats the purpose of watching television.
Streaming, yeah.
I mean, but that's me. This is just me because I have work and I work from 7 to 4, so I got to plan because I can't just watch it while working, obviously.
I mean, I
But
work
I just
too.
like to plan ahead so that way I can do it in my own. And that's the beauty of streaming services. You can watch them at your own time, at your own pace, when you're not busy with stuff, or when you're having dinner.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I work. I have a job as well. I work from 9 to 6. But even if you like, even if that's the case, I would still essentially, based on this logic, I would also have to like plan ahead to watch them at a particular time. Because if I don't, I'm also gonna get spoiled as a result of it. And I feel like that takes away a lot of the anticipation and build up. Because if I don't watch it when I'm supposed to, by the time I do watch it, everyone else will have already said it. Well, already spoken their piece on it, and if I'm not already spoiled by then I'm definitely gonna be spoiled by the time I finally do decide to pick up and watch it.
Right.
So like I definitely like I see why binging for some people feels much more convenient and much easier to do, but to me binging is just a way to check something off a list to say that I've watched something. But then when you actually talk about it and somebody asks you basic questions, you're left there scratching your head wondering what the hell they're talking about. It's the same thing with anime. Anime binging is another thing that I find a bit problematic because you can watch 13 episodes of the first season of Attack on Titan, but the minute somebody asks you, hey, what did you think about Sasha Browse? You're going to be left wondering, I like her. Yeah, she's my favorite. I like the scarf that she has. That's how you'll know they don't know the character. They just know them based on visual cues. And even then, like that example, they're not even talking about the right character. They'll be talking about a completely different one. Because when you binge something, you're more focused on watching it and getting it over quickly and not actually sitting down and enjoying it. That's why so many people are on their phones when watching things. That's the one upside to watching things subbed instead of dubbed when it comes to anime, for example. Back to anime. Because you have to watch it because you need to read what they're saying to understand what the hell is going on. But if you're watching
Mhm.
something like Stranger Things, you can literally just have it playing in the background and you can have all the episodes streaming immediately and not have to stop. I remember the days when Netflix had this stupid little warning that said, "You watch over 3 episodes of this. Do you want to continue?" And in my mind, I'm thinking the fact that Netflix, of all people, is telling you to stop binging is a big indicator that binge culture as a whole is extremely problematic.
I can see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Mm, like so, like that's just me though. I mean, net streaming is not going to be going away because of all the money that it makes, and maybe that's for the best for some people. I really wish that things were different, but there's nothing we can do about it now. This is the world that we're living in, and hey, a lot of fantastic shows came through streaming only, and unfortunately, a lot of those shows are not available physically, except for The Boys, which finally got a physical release, but now I had to wait
Finally.
until season 3 comes out.
Yeah, that's an odd thing, you know. Like certain shows that got released exclusive for streaming aren't available on DVD or Blu-ray. I remember finding season one of House of Cards available on DVD in Costco years ago, and I believe I found Daredevil and Jessica Jones to be available, on media on separate media, which is wonderful. Which I haven't done
Yeah.
that yet. But there's to this day, there's been no Blu-ray release for the Marvel shows or Mandalorian for that matter.
I would
Disney.
love a Blu-ray copy of Mandalorian. I would love one.
Me too. Like Disney says that they're not that those are exclusive to Disney Plus, which means that they won't be released, but I call bullshit. They're going to release them soon. You cannot have
Yeah,
this thing on a streaming service and not have it released physically. That's just a waste of money there, especially when you can nickel and dime people to buy them physically and keep them so they don't have to watch it on a service that they probably don't want to be using too much.
That's right,
I
because there's a
do
whole
plan
other.
on. I sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
No, well, what I was gonna say is that you're also like you would also be appealing to people who don't like Sebastian said don't want Disney Plus or maybe can't afford Disney Plus, who would rather just have it and they can just like watch it any time with no internet lag.
Yeah, because remember, streaming may be a big thing in America and in some capacity in Japan as well and in the UK, but there are places in the rest of the world where streaming is not even possible. There's a reason why Luca had to be released in theaters in some places in the world, but was still released exclusively on Disney Plus in America, the UK, and in Japan, which I still think is a load of complete horseshit.
All right, what were you gonna say, Robert?
Right. I mean, I was going to mention that I plan on getting Castlevania Complete Series on Blu-ray one day because that's a must-own.
Yeah, I already own the whole series on Blu-ray, and the fact that it takes over a year and a half, if not two, for them to release something like that physically on DVD or Blu-ray is a big indicator as to just how much streaming is basically becoming. It's basically becoming like a poor man's movie theater. Because
Mhm.
I remember when you watch a movie in theaters, it takes a year and a half for movies to come out physically. It used to be longer than that, if you ask your parents' kids. But now you go to a movie,
And memories.
you watch it in theaters. Now they'll be released in less than 2 or 3 months, if not less, because that's how
I remember
convenient things are now.
back in the day. I can't believe I'm saying these words. I remember
Yeah.
waiting at least 3 to 4 months, maybe five, for a movie that was in theaters to be available on DVD. I was there when it happened. Yep, I'm quoting
And
Aslan here.
and that also depends on how big the movie was, like how much money it made at the box office. Because if it was something huge like Avatar back in the day, it would take like 6 months, 6 to 7 months to be released on home media.
I remember when Avatar got released. My dad, my stepdad bought me a copy of the Blu-ray when it was released on Best Buy, and I was still in school, so it was something I was not expecting. But it was definitely a very happy memory of mine. But that's it. That it's little stuff like that is now basically inconvenient. Now somebody is gonna buy a Blu-ray for somebody, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh, thank you. I mean, I can watch this already on Netflix, but that's good. Thanks. I'll just put it in my shelf where it'll be collecting dust and never be opened."
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the sad part. I mean, that's the thing. I've been Here's the thing. I haven't bought a Blu-ray in a while. The last one being Spider-Man No Way Home, and before that a Doctor Who special, and before that Suicide Squad, and then Shang-Chi, which I ordered through Amazon. And it depends on the movie, because here's the thing about movie purchasing nowadays. If I want to watch a movie, it depends on the movie that I really, really want to keep. Not buy every movie, but just I would buy certain films that I want to keep and plan to rewatch, for future rewatches. It doesn't have to be every movie, because let's say you buy that one movie, and then once you got it and watched it, you're gonna move on, and then you forgot, like, oh yeah, I bought that movie, just haven't watched it since. Like, for example, I wanted to have Suicide Squad because I love that movie. I wanted to have Shang-Chi and Black Widow because, they're part of the MCU. I want to build a collection. And of course, I want to have more Doctor Who content because I love Doctor Who. I want to have the specials available on Blu-ray, even though I have digital copies.
Okay, well
Mhm.
that's perfectly fine and all, but again, a lot of that excitement and build up kind of disappears when you can literally just pick it up and watch it once and then completely forget about it after you do so. And when you have everything there just laying down and you watch it, it's no longer special. It no longer becomes anything worth raving about anymore. That to me is, I think that's a sign that I'm getting older, because I look at this and I'm just thinking things were much simpler back in the day. But the way that the way that things are being handled here is very much similar to my thoughts on digital downloading on video games instead of buying them physically. Like, it's cool. We have them. You can buy them online now, and you can play them as soon as they finish downloading. Yay! But now you negate the process of going to a store, buying it, picking it up, taking it home, and that excitement building up, putting it in, to just a click of a button, and that's it. That to me is this, that's streaming for me as well. That's just, it's no longer an exciting feed. It's just, it's, you click a button and that's it. See, I think this kind of got a little depressing. So, Diego, why don't you go ahead and let's move on to yours, Diego, because yours I know for a fact is gonna be fun. Well, not fun for him, but fun for me, because I know exactly what we're getting into. So, I believe you had another movie that you wanted to talk about that you seem to have a bit of an unpopular opinion on compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah. So we went from depression to anger, it seems, because this next movie that we're going to be talking about is going to piss people off. This might be the end of Cinemageddon reviews as we know it, y'all. So get ready, and it is Logan.
Bullshit.
Oh
It is.
God!
Um.
It's Logan, y'all. So
Oh
this
my
movie,
God!
Everybody who's
The
into Marvel knows Logan. It was like easily a lot of people called it the greatest solo Wolverine movie. It was apparently also people have called it the best X-Men movie in the Fox X-Men franchise. I disagree heavily. I think Days of Future Past still holds that title, but
Days of Future
never
Past sucks.
let me
Wait a
let
minute,
me
Days of Future Past. I actually love that movie.
Robert, let the man speak.
hey,
Sorry,
hey no,
sorry.
I actually listen. I love Days of Future Past too. It's still one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Anyway, we went from that to Logan, and oh my God, how far the mighty have fallen. Let me just tell you. Okay, so let me just go through a couple bullet points of like a couple plot details and a couple production details. So it was directed excellently, I might add, by James Mangold, who is going to be directing the upcoming fifth movie of the Indiana Jones franchise.
Indiana Jones.
Super excited for that. He's a great director. He is not the problem here. We do not talk about James Mangold in a negative way. He's an excellent director. I love him. And for the record,
Agreed.
Hugh Jackman turns in his best performance ever as Wolverine in this movie. I am not going to debate that. That is completely true. Robert, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get into plot spoilers here.
Do it.
The
Just
plot.
go ahead. I got spoiled beforehand, so it's fine. Do it.
Okay. All right. So
Here we
I
go.
apologize. I apologize in advance, but the plot is exactly like The Last of Us, except lame.
Oh god.
It's less emotionally investing because of how derivative and dull it feels. It feels like for every single important scene in the film, they ripped off every famous movie that is about an old dude carrying a little girl like to some place because he has to save her. Like you've seen them all. You've seen Children of Men. You've seen a ton of other movies that I can probably name. The villain in this movie could have been any number of unadapted X-Men villains. I actually did a little bit of research before doing this podcast, and two that stood out to me that have not been adapted to film yet are Mr. Sinister, who has powers similar to Apocalypse, but is more like a street level, like Wolverine level villain, let's call him that. Or Omega Red, who is basically in a nutshell Wolverine combined with Cable from the X-Men, who was in Deadpool 2, and Doc Ock. Super badass looking villain. I read up on his powers. They're awesome. Instead of giving us either one of those or any number of other cool X-Men villains that haven't been adapted to film, they went with the laziest and most unoriginal choice possible, which is Robot Wolverine. And he has an official name in the movie, but I'm not saying what his actual name is because it pisses me off how lazy the writers were on this choice. It is derivative. It is lazy. You can tell they were uninspired. They did not give a shit about this movie. And to further capitalize on this point, they promised us a brutal flashback scene where, just like in the comic book Old Man Logan, Wolverine goes on like a delirious rampage and murders the X-Men in cold blood. It was going to be gory. It was going to be frightening. It was going to be basically a Wolverine horror movie. And he was going to wear his iconic red and yellow suit. James Mangold actually posted a photo on Instagram of the red and yellow suit. It was like in a box or something. I remember that to this day. Never happened. Instead, we get this cheap, lazy exposition from Professor Xavier about how his dementia killed the X-Men, because in the movie it's established that Professor X had dementia and it gives him headaches that basically give everybody else headaches. It's stupid, it's cheap, it's a cop-out from the brutality of like the source material, which I get that they couldn't do because the MCU was also happening at the same time. They didn't have the rights to all the characters they needed to use. Still, they could have done something. They had so much potential for this movie and they dropped the ball. The visuals also, I need to point out, like even a lot of the story beats copy off of The Last of Us, including the costume and the production design. Like if you actually watch the movie, Wolverine looks exactly like Joel. And if you like don't look at it 100%, like if you don't notice the detail on X-23's shirt, it actually looks like she's doing an Ellie cosplay. It's so lame. It's so lame, you guys. It makes the movie feel predictable, uninspired, and it just bored me to tears. I liked this movie for like an hour after I walked out of the theater, and then after that I was just like, wait a minute. I was thinking about playing The Last of Us because I love the movie so much, and then I was like, wait a minute. This is The Last of Us. I just watched a really bad The Last of Us movie where instead of zombies, it's Robot Wolverine. So, yeah, I don't like Logan. I really don't like this movie. I understand that you guys might have your thoughts on it. Maybe Sebastian might say that he loves it. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna be very, very honest with all of this. So I knew going into this what your opinion was on the movie. That's why I was snickering because I knew what I was getting into. Here's the thing: it is extremely easy to say that this movie ripped off The Last of Us in some regard. And I get where you're coming from there. Like, I can see why some will feel the same way about Wolverine versus Wolverine basically being the final antagonist for this, being kind of a disappointment. And I'm not going to get into the adaptation wise because that's a completely different thing. I will talk about it slightly, but not right now. Because one thing I want to point out, since we're on to talk about The Last of Us, I think you're being way too harsh on that comparison. Honestly,
I disagree.
because
Disagree strongly.
here's the thing, look, I get, like, on a basis, yeah, I can see why this is kind of like The Last of Us, but it's a very easy story trope, and you're acting as though The Last of Us was the first one to do this kind of story. And
I didn't say that. I did not say that because I also mentioned Children of Men, which came before that, and that was also a very good movie. And I know that this type of story has been done a bunch of times before. I know that. I'm not saying that Logan didn't have permission to do it. I'm just saying they shouldn't have been so haphazard about it. They shouldn't have been so lazy about it. Like, at least add something like original, or at least more closer to the X-Men universe than just some movie where Wolverine drives around with a little girl for a while and then dies. Spoiler alert.
yeah, I mean, I get that, but if we're going by that same comparison, wouldn't The Last of Us technically be a ripoff of Children of Man, since that's also technically doing the same kind of story? And the way you say that they wear the similar outfit, have you actually played The Last of Us and seen the movie? They wear completely different clothes throughout the entirety of those two different entities. For one, Joel and Ellie wear almost the exact same kind of clothes throughout the entirety of the game. The only time where things are different is when they go into an area and it starts to snow, and halfway through the end where Joel is grabbing Ellie from the facility with the Fireflies, or whatever the hell that terrorist group was called, because it's been a while since
The Hunters.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Fireflies.
the fire
It was
No, the
Fireflies.
Hunters.
Right, the Hunters. That's what that was. Well, yeah, but if you look, like, Logan and X-23, they're wearing completely different clothing. Like, I can see why it would be on some basis you can see similarities there, but that's exactly that. Similarities. Everything is just very similar, but that's all that it is. To say that this is ripping off that because it has those same beats that another property has will be the same as me saying that something like Aragon is a ripoff of Star Wars because it has the exact same story beats that it does. And to be fair, Aragon was technically ripping off Star Wars in that regard because the author of that book was a child who liked Star Wars a lot and used that as the basis. But even if you read the book, it's only through coincidental ways that it looks like a ripoff, but it isn't necessarily a ripoff just because it has those same exact story beats. Because by that same regard, Star Wars would be considered a ripoff of the Hidden Fortress.
Well, but you do see where I'm coming from with this, right? To the point where it tried so hard to just be the end to Wolverine's story that it didn't care about being anything else. It didn't care about being, for example, a good movie. It didn't care about being close to the X-Men source material. It just cared about one thing, which is Wolverine dies at the end.
Well, I mean, I get that. I totally see where you're going there. I agree. But here's my argument on that. The X-Men franchise sucks. It has sucked
I have to
for a
agree.
long
Yeah.
time. Like, let's do a count how many good movies we have here. We got the first X-Men movie, which I really like. X-Men 2, X-Men United, I consider to be one of the best. X-Men 3 is a thing. X-Men Origins Wolverine, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
That was a piece of shit. X-Men First Class was fantastic.
It was pretty good.
Badass. It's badass.
Days of Future Past can disappear for all I care. X-Men the Wolverine can disappear for all I care.
That I agree with.
X-Men Apocalypse. Do we even need to talk about Dark Phoenix?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
And the less we say about the New Mutants, the better. Let's tip our hats to the poor souls who had to wait for the New Mutants to come out. And
Was
to be
anybody even
disappointed.
excited? Let me just ask, let me just open this up to the general public. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I guess, can you comment down in the comment section? Were you actually excited for the New Mutants? Just be honest. You waited 8 years for that.
I wanted this to be good. I was actually excited for it, but that's only when the first trailer came out.
You had potential. This had potential to be a superhero movie with a touch of horror elements. Plus, not to mention a great cast of people here. But what do you get after all that wait? Mixed results. All very mixed results.
Mixed my ass. That film was garbage. But
It's a film.
Now, I haven't seen it, so no comments. I haven't seen it. I have no comments.
Then don't say
Okay,
that it had
all
mixed results then. But yeah,
Okay.
that's basically.
I meant about the reception. I read that critics gave it very mixed or negative. That's what I read about. I'm not saying that I have. I'm saying that when it came out, it received very mixed reception. Like critics gave it mixed to negative.
It was
it didn't do well.
Okay, well, it wasn't mixed, dude. It was overwhelmingly negative from both critics and audiences, is what I'm trying to tell you. But yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
Anyways, going back
to Logan.
Yeah, back to Logan.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you what the mindset was when coming up with the story, but I can promise you, I do not find it hard to believe that James Mangold looked at the body of work that is the X-Men franchise and decided to chuck it all down the toilet because he saw that there were more L's than W's with the films. And I completely see why he decided to treat this as the final closing swan song for Wolverine and not have it tied into anything else. Why would you want to have all of this god-awful baggage lined up with you? I mean, I can see, for someone who is a fan of the movies, I can understand why this can be upsetting, but you need to understand, the movies were not all that good, and for fans of the comics, the comic that was based on of Logan, like the Old Man Logan comic, I'm sorry, that comic also sucks.
I disagree strongly.
Are you telling me?
I was very emotionally invested in the comic book, and look, I understand. I was not expecting it to be an entry in the MCU. I was not expecting Wolverine to team up with Hawkeye. I was not expecting to see Captain America die at the hands of the Red Skull. I was not expecting any of that. What I was expecting was a good movie. And it was for like an hour after I left the movie theater, and then I woke up.
And you're so are you telling me that you would have also liked to see fucking Logan cutting open Hulk's stomach after the Hulk swallowed him whole?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, basically.
Yes. And unironically, I will add.
Oh my goodness. This is why I love what I do. But yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. It's like I can understand if you were a fan of the source material that the movie will not do what it does to you that the comic did. But the comic and the movie were never going to be seeing each other eye to eye because the movies were never seeing each other eye to eye. They stopped seeing each other. They never saw themselves eye to eye. They literally mocked the idea of doing that in the first movie with the line that Logan has with that one exchange that Logan had with Cyclops where he was complaining about the clothing and then Cyclops says, "What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?" Like, it was tongue-in-cheek because they thought nobody wants this, but that's just it. People do want this. And when we got this was following that same mindset. It's not colorful, it's not enjoyable, it's very serious, very gritty, and very dark. But Logan was probably the only film where all of this was warranted. It earned that rating. The fact that it was R-rated was one thing, but the fact that it was allowed to be as gory and violent as the comic was to a certain degree, that's almost unheard of. Like, that does not happen. Like, you can argue whether or not the story is original or not, and sure, everyone will have an opinion on that, but one thing you cannot take away from this is that this is the first comic book movie to legitimately resemble the source material that it was adapting, even if only to some degree.
That's the thing. And look, again, I'm going around the bend again. I'm going around in circles. No, it didn't. Because there were certain things that were given to us, like expectations. Like, for example, there were things that James Mangold wanted to do. And again, this goes back to your argument about the Fox universe just not caring what the fans wanted, which kind of supports my argument, to be honest with you, is the fact that there were things that James Mangold wanted to do, that never saw the light of day. Like, for example, I told you about the Instagram post where he teased Wolverine's classic yellow suit. Apparently that disappeared. Like, they just never talked about that ever again.
But hold on, wasn't that supposed to be a tease for the Wolverine, not Logan?
No, it was a tease for Logan.
Okay.
It was a tease for Logan.
Okay, so, well, I guess that's basically what I'm thinking at here is they realize no one really cares about this universe enough, so they decided, let's not tie this into the Wolverine. We're gonna tie it in the same way that Days of Future Past is tied into both the original and the new X-Men movies, even though these timelines do not make sense if you think about it.
Yeah, there I did notice that. I did notice that there were two timelines kind of happening at the same time, and it was like, okay, so are the movies that like X-Men 2 and 3, like, are they still canon? Is X-Men Origins still canon or not? And then you go back to like X-Men Apocalypse and it's like, no, it's not.
You see what I mean? This is why I wasn't as much of a fan of Days of Future Past as everyone else, because that film was just a gigantic clusterfuck that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But at least we got to see Wolverine's ass. I mean, it may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but the bisexual in me definitely enjoyed seeing that. But was it worth it for such a lackluster story?
I think if you're going to tie in two timelines together, that's the best you're going to get. And quite honestly, the story was written really, really well. It felt original. Granted, they did have to do a lot of leaps in logic. Like, for example, they had to change Kitty Pryde's powers because in the original comics, it's Kitty Pryde that goes back in time, not Wolverine. But they make her do like this. She blasts light onto Wolverine's head to send him back in time, which I thought that was kind of BS.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember that part, which I'm wondering, wait a minute, doesn't she only have the power of intangibility, and that's it? That's her main power, intangibility, as in phasing for walls. But I guess they thought, hey, if she can phase for walls, maybe if you phase someone's mind, I guess. I know in comic books, we shouldn't really feel grounded, and because it's comic books, like anything's possible in the world of science fiction, which I get that, but at least bring a smidge bit of sense. A smidge, like a proper sense here.
Like it doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to make real world logical sense. It has to make internal logical sense. Is what it's trying. It is what it needs to do. And
it has to follow its own rules. Is what you're saying.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing that you can do whatever the hell you want in a superhero movie or a comic book movie. There are no rules except the ones that you make. But if you're gonna put rules, fucking follow them at the very least.
That's right.
Consistency.
Yes. And Logan kind of felt like a film that in a way didn't really treat itself like a superhero movie. Like, there were superheroes in them, there was superhero stuff in it, but it felt less like a superhero movie, and it felt more like it felt more like one of those dark and gritty Frank Miller stories. And the fact that I'm even mentioning his word and comparing it to this is a huge disservice to this movie, so apologies in advance to anyone watching or listening to this. But it feels like a deconstruction of a character instead of an actual character story. And I can see that. I can totally see that. But at the same time, I like what they're doing here. This is literally the best that they could have gotten with the god-awful mess that is the X-Men franchise that we currently got. We'll probably get some...
started. The inconsistencies in the timeline is freaking frustrating. Not to mention... which in Dark Phoenix is the 1990s, and yet Xavier and Magneto barely aged. Now, I can assume that when it comes to having mutations, your genetics have been altered to the point where it slows your aging, but I call poppycock, mate. Because, you need to look like you're aging, because they should be at least in their 50s. But then again, Michael Fassbender is in his mid-40s, so it can make sense there, because that's the thing. They look great for their age because, they barely age because they look great for their age. They look young still. But then there's the other cast members, like with Pietro or the other characters. Like, they should be grown up. They should be adults, not kids, but adults.
Now you see the problem with this franchise.
Oh,
it just doesn't.
I had this problem for a long time. It's frustrating, like really frustrating.
God.
Or cast someone else to play older versions of these characters just for that one movie and not keep them, because I get it, they're great
Movies
in
have
their
done that
roles.
before.
Exactly. They have. Honestly, I was about to say maybe they should have gotten Ben Platt to play all of them, since he can be any age that he wants, but he can still be a 17-year-old, even if he looks absolutely nothing like one. I knew I was going to sneak in a Dear Evan Hansen joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, I had a feeling too, because I haven't watched it, but I'm definitely I'm not gonna watch after watching your long analysis about that movie. I'm actually not gonna watch it. I was curious about it at the time, but then I thought, no, I'm not gonna watch it.
Trust me.
I saw the first trailer and I was just like, "There's no way in hell I'm watching this. This looks campy as hell."
Oh, I wish this was campy. I wish that this was camp. I wish that this was directed by Joel Schumacher. I wish that there were nipples, dicks floating everywhere. I wish that this was Baz Luhrmann levels of ridiculous. This movie was boring as fuck, but I digress. Back to Logan.
Also, rest in peace, Joker.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, but rest in peace. I still think Batman and Robin is the better Batman movie. But anyway, Logan was not a bad film. Like, I can see why you don't like it, but let me be very honest, and I'm gonna ask you this very simple question: of all the superhero movies, which one of them received an Oscar nomination for a screenplay?
It shouldn't have.
It did. Best adapted screenplay.
Let me tell you something. The Hurt Locker won Best Picture at the Oscars. Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan at the Oscars for Best Picture. Do you think that was warranted?
It was not. First of all, it was nominated.
Best Picture.
I agree on that 100%. But first of all, keep in mind, I just said it was nominated. I didn't say that it won. But I'm only saying.
It was nominated.
Yeah, but what my point is. It was nominated, but how many superhero movies do you know that were nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay?
I think
very rare until this came along.
Literally not a single one that I can think of. And honestly, I can attest to the writing on this. This is a film, even if you don't like the directing, the writing is definitely what rescues it. The writing for this movie was superb from everybody, and it only makes it even better when you see all the talent that it has. Like, I will never get over the chemistry between Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart. Just listening to Patrick Stewart actually throwing F-bombs in this movie was probably the funniest thing in the world. Like,
it went against his character, though. Like, that's one of the things that I actually dislike about it. It just felt so inconsistent for him. Again, it only serves to complement the point you were making earlier about how inconsistent the X-Men franchise is. You don't think this movie isn't, like, affected by that?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, here's the thing. I stopped following these movies in terms of canon years ago. After Days of Future Past, I was just tired. I was so tired.
And you'll rip on me for Days of Future Past?
At least, hey, Days of Future Past was okay. I will take that for Days of Future Past, but with this movie, at the very least, I was interested in what was happening here. I don't remember shit with Days of Future Past, but at least with Logan, I remember everything that's happened. Like,
I was interested. I was actually interested, because remember, I did like this movie for like an hour after I left the movie theater, and I was interested all the way through. It's just that it disappointed me.
I mean, and that's perfectly fine. And if it disappointed you, then that sucks. But I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a ripoff, or to say that this is probably like there's elements in it that I can see why not a lot of people would like, and that's perfect. And I completely understand that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's entirely just me. But I totally see what you're trying to get here with some of the criticisms. I may not agree, but I'm not going to take away from that, because I think it is hilarious that there exists someone out there who disagrees with this movie's praise, and it just happens to be from this channel.
That's fair. I'll take that.
Exactly. Robert, if you are still curious about watching it, go ahead and do so. I'm sure the fact that you and I will probably agree on this movie is kind of amazing, because you and I tend to disagree on a lot of things when it comes to films, but that'll be hilarious, because I know you're probably going to like it a lot. I will say one more thing. I completely forgot for the life of me that X-23 was supposed to be Hispanic until she started loudly yelling at Logan in fucking Spanish. I was laughing my ass off in the theater, but I will say, the tonal whiplash came right the hell out of nowhere because we just got this after a very heartbreaking death in the film, and now we're laughing because look, she's yelling in Spanish, and he's telling a little girl to shut the fuck up. So that scene could have been handled better. I will say that. I will give at least that one bit of criticism, if it helps.
It does. Thank you. That's very cathartic of you.
You're very welcome for that.
By the way, in case you're wondering, it was "Call Me by Your Name" that beat Logan for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars.
I can't disagree with that. "Call Me by Your Name" was a masterpiece.
Haven't seen it. Heard good things.
I haven't watched that one either, but I do want to for a long time. I know that I heard it was well written, directed, and the acting is fantastic, and cinematography as well. And also nominated during that time was Mudbound, and let's see, Molly's Game, and The Disaster Artist.
Yeah,
The Disaster Artist should have won.
Yeah, let's try not to mention Franco in this video, but I will say this: "Call Me by Your Name" was definitely the best film in that category. If you ignore the fact that the film also had what's his name,
Arnie Ham.
Yeah, fuck that guy. But anyway, Robert, did you have an additional topic that you wanted to bring up before we go to me?
Yeah, that's the thing. I wouldn't know what other topic I would have in mind when it comes to unpopular opinion related to other stuff. So yeah, I think I kind of on a blank here.
Okay, well that's perfectly fine.
Oh wait,
yeah.
Oh wait, you know what? I do have something that's been bothering me lately. Criticizing an actor for doing their damn job in a movie or show. Well, I'm sorry if that person is in the show, but you have to remember that popular recent example.
Robert, but let me stop you right there, Robert. I know what you're about to get into. I'm gonna just say that's not really an unpopular opinion. A lot of people will agree with you on that,
including me.
Oh wait, but I meant to say here's the thing.
But I get what you're trying to say there, dude. But let's save that for a future video, for a future episode.
All right, sorry, it's just that when it comes to this unique topic, it's a tricky topic. It's a tricky topic for me to explore that hasn't come in mind.
I get it. I mean, you're not a very negative talking person. Trust me, I know that for a fact. I mean, I think the one you're like, I get it. I totally understand what you're trying to get there, but I found it a little hard for me to come up with another topic myself. But I do have one that I did want to talk about, if you guys will allow me. And this one is what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So anyway, my topic, the last one that I have, actually has to do with the way that corporations and companies allow fan response to dictate the way that their content is produced. How do I do this without pissing anybody off, which is gonna be very difficult because people really love to be entitled dicks on the internet. But
I mean, that's kind of what we're here for, to be honest with you. I mean, I already pissed a bunch of people off with Logan, so you might as well just go ahead.
I think somebody needs to make the thumbnail just be a picture of fucking Diego pissing on Logan's grave. Okay, but basically, I remember the days when movies were just released, and if you had an opinion on it, the only person you can talk about it to was your friends or your next door neighbor or that guy next to the water cooler at work. And now with social media, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has to share what things they were thinking about that very day. I just took a shit. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't give a crap about that, Harold. Stop tweeting at 5 in the fucking morning. And when it comes to films, everybody has an opinion. And because these people love... and that happened, by the way. That has happened to me. But when it comes to cinema, fan culture and basically fandom as a whole has essentially taken over the discourse when it comes to movies, to the point where now certain films are being handled in a way that is subservient to the way the fans want them to be, even if it's not being directly accredited to that. And that to me serves a really, really big problem for the way that film and cinema is produced. Because if you let yourself be dictated by fan opinion, and only fan opinion, you're gonna end up with a lot of terrible results. Some will say mixed, I say bad. Let's give a couple of examples, shall we? The Rise of Skywalker. I personally don't hate that film. I think it's okay. It's definitely one of the weakest Star Wars movies ever, but there's not a single Star Wars movie that I can consider bad in my eyes. I love Star Wars that much. I'm come at me however you want. That's just how I feel. But one cannot argue that there wasn't a big push to make things seem a little much more like The Force Awakens than The Last Jedi because of the way that dude bros on the internet were getting pissed off at all the different things that The Last Jedi did. And the final result was a movie that tried to please everybody. Look, Rey's parents actually mean something, even though they don't. Look, all the cameos that you wanted, even though it's just Lando and a couple of other people. Look, that one good character that you don't like because you're a racist asshole now has no character whatsoever in this film. Talking about Rose. And look, we brought Palpatine back for some fucking reason. Oh, why?
No. Somehow,
I don't.
Palpatine came back as you wanted.
Oh, shut the fuck up about that line was so bad. That line was. I love Star Wars, but even I will agree that somehow Palpatine returned is probably the worst.
Thanks. That's all the explanation we need
God
right there. No questions whatsoever.
Exactly.
You can fly now.
They fly now? They fly now? But, Finn, you're a stormtrooper! You know they can fly now!
Oh my god.
I did it! Insufficient information!
Fuck off with that shit!
Remember in the trailer when they were teasing that C-3PO was gonna die, and then he was just like, oh no, he's just having his memory erased for the second time.
Oh, okay, I forgot. I almost forgot about that. No, my favorite was how they completely retconned Poe Dameron's backstory. So he used to be, guess what? A smuggler. Guess who else was a smuggler? Han Solo. You like Han Solo, right? Give us money to remind you that this character reminds you of Han Solo.
Cheap.
I mean, wow, it takes a lot of effort to get me to talk negatively about Star Wars, so give this movie credit for that. Then...
I completely agree with you, though, because this movie has no identity. It's trying to please everybody while also, like, finishing a gigantic story that spans 9 movies. And it failed to juggle both of those jobs.
It really did. Honestly, I will not. I can still sit here and say that I like this movie. That it did a lot of things that I really liked.
It has some. I mean, you can't deny the lightsaber action. I cannot deny that, and the production, like the cinematography and the set design. I cannot deny that. But I will say this: the story, I would wish for a proper rewrite.
I mean,
like erase, like start over from scratch. Like,
did you hear about Colin Trevorrow's scrapped script that Kathleen Kennedy almost did for Episode 9?
Okay, hold on. Before we talk about this, I just want to point out, and let me tell you, I can say whatever I want about Rise of Skywalker, but thank you, Jesus, that we never went with Trevorrow's script, because Trevorrow is I say this very respectfully, and no hate to him as a person or as a creator. He is a shit writer and a shit filmmaker. I am sorry.
What?
Yeah, you heard me. Have you seen Jurassic World Dominion?
I did. That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, let me tell you, I'm perfectly comfortable saying that whatever The Rise of Skywalker did, for all the bad that it had, I will take that over fucking General Hux committing seppuku with a lightsaber. I will take that over this edgelord fantasy that Trevorrow's script and leaked concept art would have given us. Because Star Wars doesn't need to be Game of Thrones. Nothing needs to be Game of Thrones. But
here's something that I have as a counter argument. General Hux kind of sucks, and he's kind of a useless character anyway. He's just there to yell at Kylo Ren while Kylo Ren just does whatever he wants. So hold on. Let me say one thing though. Wasn't oh god, I forgot his name. Wasn't Grand Moff Tarkin the same character basically? He didn't yell at Darth Vader.
Because he couldn't. Because if he did, he would have been killed immediately. But even then, actually, no. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. He did yell at Vader in The New Hope, the one movie that he was in before he died, and then they resurrected him back to life using CGI. He said, "Enough of this, Vader. Release him, as you wish." But that's beside the point. That's one example. Example number 2. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kate, if you're watching this. Sonic the Hedgehog, the original 2020 trailer with that god-awful looking design.
Ugh.
I'm gonna say one thing, and I want it to be clear. The design was terrible. I agree 100%. This was a bad design. It was awful, and the fact that this is the design that they went with is kind of embarrassing, but I was not at all surprised. It's fucking Paramount. What were you guys expecting from the same people that gave you robot testicles and racist Transformers? But
that is a fair argument.
Yeah, so but
Also, what was it? The Romeo and Juliet law.
oh, shut the fuck up. Transformers: Age of Consent, or lack thereof.
You.
I'm sorry, the Romeo and Juliet law? What's that?
I don't have a fucking clue what they were thinking of when they came up with this, but let me just say,
please watch my Transformers: Age of Extinction movie review. I went into detail about that.
Yes,
I've seen it. I remember it. I'm just saying, it's still baffling. Like,
link in the description below, people. It is definitely worth the watch. That video, by the way, is sponsored by Coors Light, as is the fucking movie.
Pisses me off.
I need you to grab that bottle and take a good sip of it, and then run to the next scene.
Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, the trailer comes out, and when I saw... let me tell you where my space was when I saw that trailer. I was in my car, watching it. I shouldn't be doing that because it's irresponsible, but I'm a fucking dumbass, so there you go. I'm watching the trailer. I don't give a crap about the character design. The one thing that is bothering me is the fact that this is not Sonic the Hedgehog. It's literally Hop with Sonic instead of a terrible bunny character played by Russell Brand. I almost forgot his name for a second there. It's literally the exact same story. It has little resemblance to Sonic the Hedgehog as a story or as a game or as a character or whatever you want to call it. And then you have Gangster's Paradise playing in the background, which means people reacting to it weren't even allowed to monetize off of it because the damn song was claimed due to copyright. And I look at this and I'm thinking, this is the presentation that they're giving us. This is what we're getting. This is going to fail tremendously. And then they announce, sorry everyone, we're delaying the movie so that we can fix our mistake with the film. Oh, fantastic. They're going to do a rewrite. No, we're going to change the character design. Okay, and you're going to do a rewrite of the script, right? Because this is clearly not working. The movie was exactly the same. It was literally the same movie, but they changed the character model, and somehow this movie was receiving positive reviews and was making a shitload of money, even though it was released literally a month before the pandemic happened. What the hell happened here?
I think what happened was...
That's right. Very 2020. Wow.
I think what happened was they knew that this movie was not going to be a hit with fans of the video game, so they tried not to go for that. Which kind of contradicts what you just said about the redesign of the Sonic the Hedgehog character. At the same time, though, it bothered non-fans as well. So I think what they ended up doing was, we're not going to be able to make 100% faithful adaptation of the game because I think given the concept of the game, it's kind of impossible, at least based on what I know about Sonic. So instead, they tried to make the most vanilla adaptation of Sonic possible. And here's a confession. I actually kind of agree with Kate. I like Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie. And I was excited for the sequel. I haven't seen it yet, but I actually kind of enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect. Did not expect it to be perfect, but I took it for what it was.
I'm just gonna sit here and die as the only person in the world who dislikes this movie. I will give it this. My feelings on Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, have softened up after watching Sonic the Hedgehog 2, because it was that good of a sequel. It really gave a lot more. I unironically enjoyed it as a result. But my feelings towards this movie are not just with the fact that they changed the character model but not the actual story. It's the fact that because they focus all their attention on changing such an insignificant part, in my opinion, because I don't care how this character looks. If the story sucks, the character can look perfectly like he was from the game, and you'd still have a shitty story and a terrible movie with it. But now you have a perfectly good character model with a terrible story, and now you have a movie that I don't give a shit about because the story is that bad. And on top of that, the studio that was responsible for fixing the character design had to shut down because of financial troubles as a result of this and another movie that they were working on, the live action Lion King. I'm not going to argue about the Lion King, Robert, before you say something. I'm only going to say that, yes, this movie gave you guys the character model you wanted, but at the cost of people losing their jobs and losing a lot of stuff as a result of it. And I'm sorry, but no matter how many people like this movie, that still bothers me, and it's going to continue to bother me for years. And
no, I get you. I mean,
Fair.
it is
That's
a
fair.
very unfortunate cost. I agree with you on
Exactly,
that. It is
like-
an unfortunate
like
cost.
Sonic was not like losing. You did like Sonic the Hedgehog was not worth people losing their jobs over. That's just fucking.
No,
terrible.
I would never have advocated for that. No.
Exactly. Like I and it sucks that
No,
it sucks also for the movie because if people do like this movie, I would probably like it a lot more if it wasn't for that same reason. But
I know, like seriously, maybe this could be avoided if they just stick with a good design and not go with the one they released in the first place. Like, it makes you wonder who picked that design, who greenlighted that design, saying, "Oh yeah, I like this design. Put it in the movie." I mean, who picked it? I don't think the director would have picked that design.
I'm going to be very honest. I think if they have kept the original design, the movie would have ended up exactly the same. And it would have probably still made the same amount of money because people are stupid and they'll watch literally anything.
Not really.
Yeah,
I
unfortunately.
don't think so.
Really?
People-
I don't think so.
I know-
I wouldn't be convinced
I'm not talking
people
about
see it.
fans.
Like, let's say
I'm not talking about fans, mind you. I'm talking about general audiences. They'll watch it because they'll see anything that has Sonic the Hedgehog written on it, and they'll probably give it a watch. And I'm not trying to say anything about the state of people and their opinions. I'm just saying people have watched terrible crap in theaters for worse than what Sonic was. And I promise you, if the original Suicide Squad movie can make over $700 million in the box office, this was going to do the same, regardless of the change in the character design.
Okay.
I mean, let's be very realistic here. Like, that's just the world that we're living in. And speaking of Suicide Squad, let's talk about the DCEU. And with the release of certain films that were made after a response to another film. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Batman v Superman and Man of Steel, two of the worst superhero movies ever made. How do you follow this up with, how about a bastardization of a movie that was already halfway through completion, but then being redone and retooled after the director left production to go take care of his family after the loss of their daughter to suicide, and then having another director come in there, reworking everything so that it feels much more like those other movies that everyone else is paying money to see, and then releasing it into the world as this completely inconsistent film that has literally nothing to do with the film that came before it.
It feels like I completely agree. It feels completely like an afterthought. It feels just like, hey, this is like the next step, and like, hey, we're here, so I guess we don't have to care anymore. So whatever, let's just do whatever on the screen for 2 hours. It'll make tons of money. Who cares?
Exactly. Like, forgetting for a second just how completely disrespectful that was to say what you will about Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, but I will say this. The fact that they did all of this right after he left to deal with the grieving process of losing his daughter, and trying to do all of this because of their mistakes in putting a man like him in charge of a franchise that they themselves were not feeling very comfortable following the reception and financial loss of those movies. You made your bed, and now you have to fucking lie in it. at the very least, the most that you can do is give the man a chance to finish what he started and then move the fuck on. Because at the very least, you can let him finish his work. However it turns out, it can be good, it can be bad, it could probably not piss people off, I'm sure, but at least you will have people talking about it. Like they talked about Man of Steel and they talked about Batman v Superman. No one was talking about Justice League for the reasons that you were probably hoping for. This is a rare case where Marvel and DC fans were uniting to shit on you for what you did. And
Right.
I can say whatever I want about the Snyder Cut and what that would have been. If you want to know my thoughts on the Snyder Cut as a whole, go check out my video on it. It's an hour long, but it's worth the watch, even though it's probably it's a video that I wish I could remake because it's not all that good in my opinion. But I think how they handled the reception of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman was similar to how Disney responded to the response to The Last Jedi. And The Last Jedi was actually a good movie. Batman v Superman may not have been good, but it had some stuff that they can work with and make a better sequel. Guess who responded to criticism? Zack fucking Snyder. He understood the criticism. He read it. He responded to it. He himself stated, we probably went a little too dark with this. We're gonna tone things down substantially. Not too much. I'm not going to change my vision or anything like that, but I will make things a lot less bleak and miserable. And we got to see that, but before he can complete that, he ended up having to walk away because of personal reasons. And I completely respect him for doing so. And the fact that he was able to finish that with the Snyder Cut, let me say this. However I feel about the Snyder Cut, I'm very happy that now that it's out and that it's out there for people to consume it, I'm glad he was able to get closure out of it. But what I find hilarious is every single thing that Warner Brothers was trying to do to get people to like their version of Justice League, Snyder was already doing that in his version. They want things to be more optimistic and less bleak and miserable. There's the Snyder Cut right there. They want there to be less casualties and less unnecessary deaths. There were less deaths by civilians in the Snyder Cut than there were in the Whedon version. I'm not even kidding. They want things to be more happy and optimistic and joyful. Well, you still get that here, but you get more actual legitimate feelings of optimism instead of, look, Barry's making a joke about brunch. Does anybody even remember that joke? Because I completely forgot about it until I rewatched a clip for it just to be able to talk about all this. The brunch thing.
Brunch bit,
I barely remember that.
I mean, it's time to try to make Ezra Miller's Barry the comic relief, but here's the thing. You don't need to rely on one character and do that. You can have other characters be awkward, bring some chuckles with the group dynamic, and bring some funny, good lines that make you go like just to balance out the tone. But with the Justice League Wheaton cut, let's call it that, I mean, it's an unbalanced mess.
Everyone has a jokey joke to say. Even fucking Superman of all people.
Yeah.
I mean, Clark Kent isn't a chuckle guy. He's just, let's face it, he's a lovable doofus. He's a likable, big-hearted dork. You know, that's what Clark Kent is in a nutshell. He's a 6-foot tall dork.
I mean, that version of Superman is completely different from the one in the Snyderverse, I will admit. But the one in the Whedon version was nothing like either the real Superman or the Snyder Superman. So it was a complete clusterfuck.
He was just there.
He was barely even there. Every time he was there, he didn't really do anything worth mentioning. He just kept making jokes that didn't really feel like they were there and that they weren't, or that they were funny. Like, why is this happening? Like, I get why, because they know that this version of Superman is so emotionless and bleak and has basically zero personality whatsoever. And I agree with that. But a couple of dumb jokes does not a personality create.
No, I mean, you can be socially awkward. You can be awkward. You can be naturally funny. You can be sarcastic. You can be, naturally funny. But this doesn't make a personality. What we just got. What you got here is a person just saying stuff to try to be funny, which it does not work this way at all whatsoever.
It really does say something when
charisma. You need charisma, simply put.
It really says something when fucking Henry Cavill had the most charisma in this movie than he did for anything else that he's worked on in his whole career. Even stuff. Even in The Witcher.
The
Witcher.
I was just gonna say that he brings a lot of chuckles, even though he's this guy going.
I don't know what you're doing there, but yeah, he's a very
He grunts.
He's a
grunter. He's known for grunting a lot. My point is, he makes me laugh there than in freaking Wheaton Cut.
Yeah, the thing is that Henry Cavill is a very stoic actor. He's an actor of very limited range, but the movies that he's in, for the most part, they work to his advantage as an actor. With Superman, it worked to his disadvantage. With Man of Steel, he didn't really get to do a whole lot because his limited range of acting didn't allow him to present himself in the way that I'm sure Snyder wanted. Or maybe that's how he wanted it. I don't know. I don't know the man. Snyder, if you're listening to this, I would love to interview you one day. I'm a big fan of your work, and I'm sure Emma would love to meet you as well. But I don't
Same here.
It worked to his most disadvantage as an actor. And with Batman v Superman, it also worked to his disadvantage. He only has like 13 lines in that film. I swear to God, he has less lines in that movie, even though he takes second billing to Ben Affleck. How does this movie called Batman v Superman have more Batman than Superman? Shouldn't it be balanced out? But
exactly.
But again, with the Whedon cut, they tried to do all of that, but as a result, this version of Superman feels less like Superman and more like a tongue-in-cheek, this is us making fun of all the people that did all those decisions that you don't like about Superman. And like, yay, fantastic. That's good for a laugh for like 2 minutes. And where's the rest of the character? And I'm going to say one more thing.
Not to mention the goddamn 2-hour range.
Okay. That's a separate argument. Like, I think 4 hours for a movie is way too damn much. But the fact that this was released in parts and that you can stop at any point, I think that's very good, and I think that's very convenient. Unless you're a complete masochist like me, who watched it all in one run and didn't stop because I hate myself that much. But
I did that too.
Yeah.
I did that before a lot of other people did because we
all hate ourselves.
I got to see it before everyone else did, and Emma still hates me to this day that I got that opportunity. But yeah, he was here's, I'm gonna say this. The fact that Cable was able to bring much more raw emotion and energy into this performance, it shows that there was a lot of growth with the movies. Like, not growth in terms of character, but growth in terms of acting. He over time became Superman, but he had to find that Superman in him in order to be able to portray it however he wanted and however Snyder wanted to. And we got that with the Snyder Cut. But with the Whedon cut, we just got a version of that first of all looked ugly as sin because of the CGI used to cover up that mustache that he had in Fallout.
Yeah.
And secondly, he spent less time actually being he is being a hero, but motherfucker, do I need to see him picking up a building and carrying it on screen? I mean, it looks cool, yeah, sure, but why is this being done as a visual gag to show that the Flash is inferior as a hero? Like, isn't the whole point of the Justice League that each one is powerful in their own unique way and that they all each bring a balanced bit of effort to make the Justice League what it is? I mean,
and to capitalize on your point, the whole race between the Flash and Superman at the end of the Whedon cut. They really reshot the entire Justice League and then included that too.
Exactly. That right there, when you watch the Snyder cut, every single one of the heroes gets their own moment to shine. Cyborg, Wonder Woman, fucking Flash rescues everyone. He saved the world. No wonder I was
that scene is a work of art. The whole sequence is a work of art.
Without a doubt.
I agree 100%. Like fucking even Aquaman of all people, who I still stand by, didn't have enough to do in this movie, which is kind of a shame, but it's understandable given the big cast of characters this movie had. Even he had a lot to do and a lot to say. He went through a lot more growth than half of anybody in this movie. He had zero character in fucking Whedon's version. The only thing I remember from him is that admittedly one funny gag where he's roasting everybody and then he starts talking to Wonder Woman, but then he starts to get personal, and it's only because he had the lasso of truth tied to his foot, which was a callback to a joke.
That was a good chuckle. Oh man, that was a good chuckle.
Yeah, but okay, that's cool enough. But first of all, how did that get put on him? Why is that there? I get it's only there because it's a reference. How did that
even happen? It's like it moved on its own.
It's
just wrapped itself around him.
It really, that's only there because it's a reference to it's a reference to the comic, because that happened to Steve. What was the name of Wonder Woman's love interest? Steve Trevor. Yeah, because that happened to him. That happened to him in the comic. But okay, that was with a different character, and the context is completely different. What does it mean here? Your silence kind of speaks for itself. But, and there was,
when you think about it, if you compare both versions, Momoa's Aquaman, they both had very little, very, very little changes. But at least in the Snyder cut, he still delivered. His take is still much better.
I mean, in the Whedon cut, he had zero characterization apart from frat boy piece of shit. And in the Snyder cut, he still had like a little bit of an attitude there, but it was a much more restrained attitude. At least he wasn't yelling.
It was justified by his motivation and his backstory, which we actually explored in this movie.
Exactly. Plus, I didn't have to hear him yell "Woo!" every single goddamn time, which got on my nerves when I was watching it in the theater. It's like, who thought this was good? Like, he does it once in the Snyder cut. Only once, and it was restrained. It was very restrained. But in the Whedon cut, he does it every single time. He's flying up in the air or being tossed out by either Cyborg or flying against the parademons. Good fucking God, what were they thinking? And this was all in response to the fan backlash of Batman v Superman. They wanted to give the fans something that they will like, when in reality, they're giving fans something that they feel will help their bottom line. If they give fans what they want, they'll say nicer things and be less angry. But what you're forgetting is that we don't give a shit about all of these different stuff. What we want is good quality writing and storytelling. You can make all these characters however the hell you want. I can give a shit whether or not Logan is original or not, as long as the story is good. I'm so sorry.
It was not.
Whatever you say. But the fucking story and the characters have to be good in order for me to get invested. I couldn't give a shit about anything that happened in Batman v Superman, but I was invested in Wonder Woman 1984. So take with that what you will about whether or not you should take my opinion seriously on these sort of things.
I always say this. Story comes first, character second, and a good visionary to deliver both aspects. And I feel like Snyder delivered in the Snyder cut. Like, he gave us a solid story, he delivered a solid narrative, and he was able to give each character proper amounts of screen time to establish them, have them meet, establish their dynamic, and then work from there. And he delivered. He really delivered in just 4 hours.
Yeah, because the thing is, Snyder wasn't just trying to make a movie for fans. He was making a movie that he wanted to make, and whether you like it or not, and
he wanted to deliver his vision, like any artist should.
Yeah, and whether you agree with that vision or not, one cannot deny that the end result was definitely, even if you say an improvement at worst and a visual marvel at best, you can still say at least he was able to do the story that he wanted. And even if you're not a fan of Snyder, you can at the very least respect the vision that he had. And I gotta tell you, I was coming into this with zero expectations because I dreaded the idea of a Snyder Cut even existing, and I got bullied because of me disagreeing with the whole thing with the Snyder Cut. Even after it got released, they released news that the Snyder Cut does in fact exist. But that's a problem that I have with the fans, not with the creator. And if I let my feelings on that dictate how I feel about the product, I'm not a critic. I'm just another whiny asshole on the internet. So when I got the opportunity to watch the movie by myself before the rest of the internet did because of a blind shit of luck, I was very, very curious. Is this actually going to deliver? And I was legitimately shocked at what I saw. And if you want to know more about that, go check out my review on it because I've spent way longer than I should on that video. I nearly lost my job doing it. So go ahead and give it a watch and tell me what you think. Actually, no, I didn't nearly. I did lose my job while I was working on that. That was 2021. But
Oh God.
yeah, that's beside the point. But yeah, my point is studios and corporations need to understand fan feedback is okay. You can listen to feedback. But it's one thing to listen to feedback, it's another thing entirely to let decisions, important decisions, be dictated solely on fan feedback. You need to
That's
have a
right.
balance. You need to still let directors and producers be their own thing. You need to give the artist a canvas to work. If you focus too much on trying to fix things where they don't need to be fixed, then it becomes a problem for everyone involved.
Then it'll be about the consumers and less about like actual customer satisfaction.
Exactly. And let me tell you, there was a lot of satisfaction with the Snyder Cut. And you can bet that there was a lot of consumerism when they released the damn thing on Blu-ray and DVD.
Yep. I own a copy myself.
I own two. I don't ask why.
Okay.
Not yet. Because I want to get on. I do want to get it. Just haven't done so yet because I got a lot going on. But I do want to have it one day. It's just that I don't have the four. I just don't have any 4K players.
You can just pick it up on regular Blu-ray, dude.
Yeah.
I know I can do that too, but I just haven't found the opportunity at the time.
All right.
But I will.
No problem, mate. At your own pace, dude. So, well,
Right.
and that kind of wraps it up for today. What did you guys think?
I had fun. It was a good time. It was very cathartic. It was fun arguing with people.
I'm just happy that I got to be participating for the first time to share my own thoughts and jump in and fun interactions and all that. And I definitely look forward to doing another podcast one day on a different topic where at least I wish to be a little more prepared this time. But either way, I still enjoyed getting involved in this topic here.
Well, I'm glad you think that, because next week we are going to go back to business as usual, and we will be talking about underrated gems. All of us are going to be coming up with...
That's more like it.
Yes, all of us are going to be coming up with a movie or two that we like that not a lot of people like that much, whether it's critics or general audiences, and we're going to give our thoughts as to why we like them. Not because either the critics like them or other audiences like them, but why do we personally like them? Why do we think that they're good? And we're going to be joined by a lot of amazing people. Luis will come back, Emmanuel will come back, KateCast will come back, and maybe you guys would like to join us?
Sure, I'll join.
I'm in.
All right, perfect. Well, that about wraps it up. In that case, with all that being said, that wraps up today's transmission. Thank you so much for listening to us. And before we sign out, I'd like to give a special shout out to our patrons: Wait in the Wings, Abigail Verzella, Chelsea A. Crandall, and Kate from KateCast Reviews. If you like what we do here and would love to see more, check out our YouTube channel for reviews, video essays, let's plays, and more. And if you want to help us keep the lights on this scorching desert we're currently living under, then check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards. I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews signing out, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.